Microglial cells. So we know they have an important part in our immune system, but did you know that they have a crucial role in our brains as well? So it turns out they may actually be the key for us to better understand neurological diseases like MS. Let's discuss. Firstly, we need to understand how multiple sclerosis or MS works. It is a neurological disease that affects over 25,000 people in Australia and more than 2 million people worldwide. This disease occurs when the myelin sheath around nerve fibers is damaged. As we can see here, this is a healthy nerve coated with the myelin sheath fully intact. The myelin is made up of protein and fatty substances, so let's think of it as a warm and cozy blanket for our axons, giving them comfort to do their work efficiently, which is to transmit electrical impulses to and from the brain and muscle of interest. We rely on those impulses to fire really quickly in order for our bodies to work when we want it to. Now, let's say another axon is only given a thin blanket and with cuts all over it, it isn't as comfortable or as well insulated, therefore unable to do its job properly. This is actually what happens to the myelin in MS patients and is a process called demyelination. The messages or electrical signals to and from the brain and body are delayed, therefore impacting normal function. Now, since demyelination can occur on any nerve cell, the symptoms can vary depending on which part of the body the damaged nerve is attached to. These symptoms can include fatigue, difficulties walking and coordination, slurred speech, and many others. Other characteristics of MS include neuroinflammation and development of brain lesions, but we'll look at that a little later. There are 3 types of MS, the first one being relapsing remitting MS or RRMS, which is the most common form and involves patients having occasional flare-ups. The next stage is secondary progressive MS or SPMS, which can occur a few years or even decades after the initial flare-up and can become more chronic. The third type is called primary progressive MS, which is when patients go straight into having the more serious symptoms. Now, this is the rarer form of MS, affecting about 15% of all patients, but it is also the most mysterious and debilitating. Recent advancements in MS research have focused on helping patients with PPMS since there is a lack of treatment available. So remember how I mentioned microglial cells at the start and how they play an important role in our brains? Well, here's what we know. Microglial cells are like the commander-in-chief when it comes to an immune response in the brain. When an injury or an infection occurs, they activate and recruit their fellow immune soldiers, the cytokines, to prepare their weapons and activate T cells. The thing is, when the T cells come in to fight, their main mechanism is to promote inflammation. This is not ideal because in MS, our immune cells mistakenly recognize the healthy myelin tissue as foreign and, therefore, slowly strip away that warm blanket from our nerve axons. This demyelination can then lead to brain lesions caused by leftover debris. Current drugs on the market have tried to combat this by regulating T cell production. However, these drugs have shown to be less effective in treating patients with PPMS. In fact, it was only recently in 2017 when the first drug was approved for PPMS. It targets B cells instead, since they were also found to play a role in the pathogenesis of MS. The results from the MRI scans of clinical trials were encouraging as they showed fewer brain lesions and less loss of brain volume when compared to patients administered with a placebo. If this is the future of MS medicine, could targeting another immune cell such as microglia be the next step forward? So in progressive patients, so that's SPMS or PPMS patients, they've actually found clusters of activated microglia very close to their brain lesions. Now, current research has suggested that microglia can actually play a part in alleviating the disease in the later stages by promoting remyelination, which potentially makes them a very viable target for new treatments. To understand why the location of these brain lesions is important, we need to note the difference in function between the white and grey matter of the brain. So grey matter is made up of neuronal cell bodies that actively process the information that comes into the brain and then sends that processed information to where it's needed in the body. The brain's white matter is like the road that all the signals travel along, allowing for the communication to and from grey matter areas within the brain. With this understanding, if in PPMS lesions occur more aggressively in the grey matter areas, it could explain why PPMS patients suffer from worse disabilities. The brain cannot properly process as much information, thus impacting the efficiency of a normal body function such as walking or talking. Knowing the whereabouts of these brain lesions could then help us predict the onset and severity of a disability. So as you can see, there are still so many unanswered questions about this devastating disease. Now, in Australia alone, patients are expected to pay up to $30,000 if they suffer from little to no disabilities, and then up to about $114,000 if they suffer from a severe disability. And although advanced treatments have helped in the decline of unemployment within the MS community, progressive patients have still reported a low quality of life, with the main factors affected being pain and independent living. So it is clear that we still lack some knowledge on how to effectively treat these patients. But hopefully over time we can find ways to help mitigate the burden and maybe even find a cure and bring hope to MS patients and their families all around the world.